Hello and welcome back to the Rekt Capital channel, and welcome to today's video update. We're going to be talking about how to trade altcoin hype cycles, and yes, this ties in with yesterday's article which I've published on rektcapital.co, my website. We're going to be talking about this article in particular. We're going to be referencing it as to how to just navigate these hype cycles, these altcoin hype cycles. And of course, this article is proudly sponsored by Clio.one. I am going to be experimenting with automation and automating a portion of my altcoin portfolio as we approach this altcoin hype cycle. I think it's going to be very useful, and I'm going to be sharing my journey with you guys, so stay tuned for that. It is the very first time that I'm going to be experimenting with automation and automating a part of my altcoin portfolio, so I will keep you guys updated on my journey as we go along and progress through this altcoin hype cycle. And the thing about altcoin hype cycles is that they occur because we tend to see cycles in psychology. So these altcoin movements are fundamentally underpinned by fear and greed in market investors, in the psychology of market participants, and we have to just understand how cyclical the psychology is so that we can make the most of these hype cycles. So it's all about hype. It's all about this limitless thing that comes into our imagination, and we start to conjure up all these different possibilities. Will this altcoin potentially have a partnership with a world-renowned brand? Is there going to be an exchange listing? And all of these things do encourage and motivate people to FOMO into certain altcoins, and that's ultimately what drives price. And these announcements, these fundamental analysis announcements, events, updates, whatever you want to call them, they could even be mainnet releases. These sort of things, this FA, is what drives hype and drives people to FOMO and buy into a certain altcoin. So this hype and emotion cannot be understated. It's this emotion that is caused by this hype that motivates people into thinking they can make a lot of money from a development that's yet to come when it comes to an altcoin, and people just buy ahead of time. And the thing about this is that they buy the rumor, they buy the hype, and they sell the news. And it's all about being a bargain hunter, buying in anticipation of price appreciation in an altcoin and thinking that we are strategically positioning ourselves ahead of time, ahead of the herd, for that price appreciation before that rumor, that hype that I'm talking about here, turns into price appreciation and then finally fizzles out. That hype dissipates and people sell the news. And that's how you have to play altcoin hype cycles. You have to buy ahead of the herd. You have to buy the rumor. You have to buy the fact that there could be potential price appreciation in an altcoin, and then finally sell the news once that appreciation in price has occurred. And fundamental analysis is very useful in determining when to buy, when to sell, because this fundamental analysis is very useful in understanding what sort of events are going to promote that sort of growth, that exponential growth in altcoins during a hype cycle. And this can be block reward reductions, this can be mainnet releases, beta, testnet, smart contract releases on the blockchain. Whatever the case may be, these are really strong catalysts, fundamental catalysts that can really propel price into an exponential uptrend for certain altcoins. And the thing to bear in mind about these altcoin hype cycles is that not all altcoins are going to outperform the market during these hype cycles. Some altcoins will always do well, and recently we've seen Chainlink and Tezos just outperform the market regardless, and we always have a select set of altcoins which will outperform the market for seemingly no reason, and it doesn't even matter. They don't really care about these hype cycles, they just pump whenever they want to. We're always going to have those outliers when it comes to altcoins that just outperform the market, whatever the timing, whatever the placement in terms of the altcoin hype cycle. But generally speaking, this altcoin hype cycle idea, it just pertains to most altcoins. It's a general idea that pertains to most altcoins. There are always going to be exceptions, but these altcoin hype cycles are a very useful concept, a useful model to bear in mind, and I'm going to share this model with you guys as we progress throughout the video. This is why I talk about the psychology of bargain hunters and FOMO buyers. We've talked a bit about this in this video, but if you'd like to check it out in more detail, you can definitely check out the link in the description down below. And of course, I talk about when hype wanes, doubt creeps in. This is essentially hype causing price appreciation, hype waning, and then uncertainty, fear, and doubt creeping in. It's almost as if it's all been planned. You know, you see that price appreciates considerably, and then this is where doubt starts to come in, and it happens to coincide with the time where the mainnet release is supposed to come out, when an announcement is supposed to be made. It all coincides, and it's very interesting how this timing just coincides with a sell-off basically at the end of the hype cycle, once the news is finally out there and people aren't really buying into the hype anymore, because that hype has finally translated into a reality that doesn't match with the idealizations that we had towards an altcoin. But in any case, that's the psychology of altcoin hype cycles in a nutshell. In any case, let's talk about how we can conceptualize these hype cycles, because at the end of every quarter, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, at the end of every quarter, we tend to see the highest amount of hype, and this is where we see the highest appreciation of prices across altcoins. And this happens near the end of every quarter, so it's very important to think about strategically positioning yourselves once we see an altcoin hype cycle, the bottom of this hype cycle. So for this quarter, this is very relevant for this quarter, around May. So around this time is when we see the lowest hype. We've seen extreme fear drag altcoin prices down. Nobody is really interested in altcoins. Altcoin dominance is only starting to slightly increase. People are starting to take on more of a risk-seeking approach because Bitcoin has rallied, and it is quite interesting that Bitcoin tends to rally around this time. Very fascinating stuff, because when we consider a money flow cycle, Bitcoin first has to rally before we see that capital and money flow into smaller altcoins, large caps, mid caps, and then low caps to finally end the hype cycle. So it's very interesting that around these times, when you see this hype cycle in the green area, this is when Bitcoin rallies. And of course, once Bitcoin rallies and then consolidates a bit, that capital trickles into altcoins, and then we see the hype cycle really start to take off and then finally end at the end of the quarter. So really interesting stuff. And the reason Bitcoin is a precursor to these hype cycles is because market participants are buying into Bitcoin. They've profited a bit, they're enjoying profits, and now they're starting to think, well, how can I put these profits to work? How can I maximize my profits? So when we're in a capital preservation mode over here, when everybody's selling off altcoins, Bitcoin is even selling off as well, we're seeing a lot of fear into the market. This is where people become more risk avoidant. People are preserving their capital, they're selling into fiat, they just want to have that cash handy. They want to boost their cash position. But once we see Bitcoin rally, people become more risk seeking, they buy Bitcoin, they buy into that uptrend, that Bitcoin uptrend, and then once they have those profits, they trickle those profits into more risk seeking assets. So altcoins, which are more volatile than Bitcoin, so people are getting more greedy for risk, greedy for profit, greedy for maximizing that profit. So here we see capital preservation, and once we see that altcoin hype cycle really take place, this is where profit maximization is on the minds of investors. Then capital preservation again, and then profit maximization, and it really is all about that psychology. So that's fantastic to note, because the money flow cycle, the hype cycle, Bitcoin's rallying, that all ties in together with that psychology, and it's really important how to make the most of it. And I'm going to talk to you guys about how we can make the most of these altcoin hype cycles, because we know that Bitcoin has rallied to 9,400 recently, and this just precedes altcoins rallying, starting first with large cap altcoins and then trickling down to mid cap and low cap altcoins. So timing is everything, and we've talked about timing. Now is the time to really start thinking about this risk-taking approach in altcoins. But the second thing we need to bear in mind is information. How can you find out about events that are likely to move price? Because after all, we need to know what is going to move these events, and CoinMarketCal is a great resource for that. It is an online calendar for cryptocurrency and blockchain related events, and this is where I go on. I use this myself just to go on, see every quarter what sort of events are starting to really gain steam, or which are yet to gain and gather steam. This is how you can strategically position yourself, because if you see that a altcoin has a lot of hype, that's something to think about. And we're going to talk about a few examples here. And I'm going to talk about September 2019. This is the quarter from last year, right? This is the end of quarter 3, where I actually started taking a few screenshots of the events and then juxtaposing them with altcoin price action. So in quarter 3, when it comes to altcoins like Insular, it had a lot of hot events. So these are the most hot events which are likely to really propel altcoins into significant price appreciation. And this sort of hot event is the one you want to see on CoinMarketCal, on that calendar. And these are the events that are most promising, and they're probably going to be the strongest catalyst to really move price. So I did observe these events, and of course mainnet releases are always a significant catalyst for price, and of course a wallet. So when it comes to that, I saw that we had a interesting falling wedge on Insular's price at that time. So this was before August 27th 2019, so a month before the hype really manifests, the hype really translates into price. So you can see how I'm strategically positioning myself a month ahead of time. And I can see that there is an interesting trade setup here. So I'm complementing technical analysis with fundamental analysis using CoinMarketCal. And they are two sides of the same coin. They can be useful, TA and FA. And complementing that together, you can buy the rumor ahead of time, and then you see a breakout, 64% breakout to the upside, fantastic exponential uptrend where you can finally sell the news on, because of course this hype has translated into price, and this is a pretty strong breakout. So if you see a breakout like that, you see strong FOMO, strong hype come in. This actually happened one day afterwards, so that timing was impeccable when it comes to timing Insular's breakout from the falling wedge as a result of those events, those hot events, which are very likely to be a strong catalyst into moving price so significantly. So that's a fantastic example. OST is the next trade that I talk about in my article. You can see that there aren't any hot events on CoinMarketCal. You can actually see that there are quite a few events. None are necessarily groundbreaking, but there are so many new developments coming in that this is most likely going to influence people into thinking that, wow, they're a very active team, the project is very active, it's worth investing and trying to buy into this project because of a potential price increase as a result of hype caused by all of these events. So from a purely technical standpoint, falling wedge again. And once that materializes, this actually materialized 6 days after. So September 4th, 2019 and September 10th. This trade took a little bit more time, and of course it was a 20% rally. I'm more than happy with that. That's great to see a catalyst really translate into price with a breakout from this falling wedge. So that was a really successful trade as well. And Tile, formerly known as Wabi. So many events here. You can see that none of them are hot, but of course so many events, really active community as well as the team is active. So this is a very similar thing to what we saw with OST, and I didn't see any pattern. You could of course maybe see a double bottom formation over here, and this was the breakout point that I really wanted to focus on. And once we saw that breakout, well, it even translated into a 38% rally, which is as a result of that hype. So you can see that I positioned myself August 30th, and over here a few days later, 38% towards the upside. And that's how you play altcoins during an altcoin hype cycle. It's fantastic to see. Price appreciation in altcoins is cyclical, and you have to bear in mind the psychology here. People position themselves ahead of time to just wait for that price appreciation. They buy that rumor, they buy initial feelings of hype, and then sell the news. Sell once that hype has translated into price. And altcoin hype cycles should be traded. I mean, I don't invest in altcoins. I just trade them, I swing trade them. And I really feel like this is the predominant approach that people should be thinking about when it comes to altcoins. Of course, if it's a bull market, that's a different story. Holding altcoins is the best approach. But when it comes to these undefined market stages, when Bitcoin hasn't really confirmed a bull market, a fully fledged bull market, then there is no point to just hold on to altcoins, because altcoins are very sensitive to Bitcoin's price action. So it's just better to just trade them and time the moments when you trade them. So it's just best to adhere to this altcoin hype cycle model, to just observe what sort of projects are the most active. Are they generating any buzz or excitement in their communities? You can check Twitter out on their pages just to find out if there is any buzz, any engagement, people getting excited about the hype. And if you see that, if you just tap into that market sentiment, you can try and strategically position yourself in an altcoin position before it really takes off and makes you some significant amount of profit, which you can later enjoy as the hype cycle comes to a close. And having said that, that's just about it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to delve into a bit more detail about this article and the altcoin hype cycles, feel free to check the link in the description down below to the article. I'd be more than happy to hear your feedback about what you think about these altcoin hype cycles. How are you positioning yourself in this hype cycle? And of course, leave your comments down below if you have any feedback or if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you in the next video. Speak soon.